Hello and welcome to Just Us TV, a local program showcasing people and initiatives that promote the general welfare. I'm Ann Craig, and today I am delighted to have with us local author Bill Branyon.
Good to be here.
Bill Branyon is a freelance historian who became a reporter on what became the Mountain Express, a Green Party paper called the Green Line, 1 year after it was founded in 1990. He also went to the Green Party National Convention in 1991. For the last 20 years, Bill has been a staff reporter and freelancer for the Mountain Express. He has a master's degree in history from Western Carolina University and a bachelor's of arts in history from Vanderbilt. He's run for mayor, is a hyperactivist, and is a serious student of liberal politics and philosophy. Again, welcome, Bill. Congratulations on the publication of your new book, Liberating Liberals.
Thank you.
Yes.
A friend of mine called it Liberating Liberace, but no, it's more political than that.
Yeah, it is, definitely. I must, in the interest of full disclosure, say that I have not been able to read the entire book in 24 hours. I just got my copy yesterday, and I'm very impressed with what I've read. It is very intellectual and takes, for me, some time to digest the thoughts that you're sharing in it. How I'd like to start out this interview in talking about your book, if it's okay with you, is to just try to describe in a nutshell what I'm getting from the book, and to share a quote from the book, which I think is part of your thesis about what you're trying, the ideas you're trying to share. Liberating Liberals is a way of talking about your concept of free thinking and free thinkers, and that you believe that individuals who are able to be free thinkers can become creative and innovative enough to help solve some or many of the crises our civilization is currently facing.
And I think that's a trait of liberals, and though we haven't really developed it to the extent that it can be developed.
Okay. And so your book is How Do We Develop Free, a treatise on how we develop further into the ideas of free thinking in order to become more empowered to address some of these problems.
That's right.
And you juxtapose free thinking with what I am surmising you consider its opposite, which is this fundamentalist thinking. Can you talk a little bit about the differences between free thinking and fundamentalist thinking?
Yeah, well, free thinking is defined by Webster as one who forms opinions on the basis of reason and independent of authority. And I think liberals have been the great free thinkers, are the great free thinkers of our society, as opposed to conservatives, who I see as most of their thinking comes from the fundamentalisms of a first century religion and an 18th century politics and economics, and a fundamentalist patriotism. Now this sometimes, part of the irony of this is that these fundamentalisms contradict themselves often. For instance, recently the BB&T building gave a big sum of money to Western Carolina with the understanding that they teach Ayn Rand. And Ayn Rand is a fundamentalist capitalist, but she's also a militant atheist. And she said stuff like, Christianity is the kindergarten of communism. So this shows the contradiction that capitalism is all about self-interest, Christianity is all about self-sacrifice, but somehow, it makes it really hard to communicate with a conservative when they have these contradictory things. And if the investors in BB&T found out that they are pushing this militant atheist then they might lose a lot of customers. So it's, these contradictions that if we bring them out could be very fruitful, I think.
Why do you think it is that we're living in such a society where the fundamentalists seem to have the power over free-thinking liberals? And if I'll include myself in this, if the more free-thinking people, liberals, are the more evolved, why aren't we and our ideas being more popular in the culture?
Well, I claim the first motto of a free thinker to go all the way back to Socrates and Plato, who said, "At least we know that we don't know." Conservatives feel they're right, and liberals, we fall into the trap sometimes thinking we're right, but actually, who knows what the best approach to the future is. We have our strong beliefs, we're pushing them, but in many areas, conservatives may be right.
Why? Why is it that first century religion and 18th century economic system is more dominant than free thinking?
Partly because free thinking is such a delicate flower. It's, from my view, the ancient Greeks had it for about 200 years. Then we had it in the Renaissance and the Enlightenment for about another 200, 300 years. I skipped over very important. I think the Judeo-Christian moral revolution was a period of it in ancient Rome. And then we've had the 1960s. And those are the only instances of where there was a really rigorous free thinking going on in Western civilization. Mm-hmm. So, 1950s, everybody pretty much was a conservative. Leave it to Beaver ruled. Fathers knows best. I like Ike was in the White House playing golf and doing some brinksmanship with nuclear war, but we didn't really notice that. America was expanding so rapidly and so much riches were coming in. The rest of the world was flat, right? All of Europe was flat. Not much competition in capitalism, so it was high times but 60s hit, and we questioned everything. For instance, think of all the things we questioned in the 60s and are still questioning, as a quote from my book, "To make war or construct love, to individually consume or jointly commune, to tolerate or alienate, to eat meat or veg out, to praise or blaspheme, share or buy or beware, marry or love free, abort or raise, work for the man or follow the bliss, or smoke, toke, drop, pop, or whatnot or not." So the 60s was an unbelievable expansion of free thinking, and not only that, 9/10 of humanity suddenly became important. Women, minorities, most of the third world didn't exist much before then as far as a political force.
We started thinking about our environment
So,
very seriously.
and the Reagan backlash to this is more understandable in those terms, because to me the 60s was the most powerful free thinking in history. For instance, a lot of people say when Reagan said, "Tear down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev," that's what was the cause of the downfall of the Soviet Union. But other people attribute it to the Beatles' White Album, featuring the hit "Back in the USSR." And of course that was a symbol for American free-thinking cultural exports. So that, free thinking is extremely powerful these days. And you can understand why the conservatives are just reeling. And instead of, being appalled of the Reagan years and the Bush years, we can say, well, this is easily understandable since, for 300 years before then, it was all fairly conservative for the most part. I mean, certainly FDR, there were exceptions, but...
At the opposite pole from conservative fundamentalisms is the freewheeling, free thinking of the late 19th century German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. One of the popular misconceptions about Nietzsche was that he was an adamant atheist. According to Nietzsche expert Leslie Thiel, Friedrich only opposed the existence of a God who would dictate how humanity is to live, thus hurting human creativity. Nietzsche was much more concerned with the psychological superstructure that belief in a fundamentalist God creates, what he called shadows of God. For instance, belief in a God who formulates 10 unbreakable commandments creates a mental predisposition for absolutes. But there are also secular shadows of God caused by this tendency. Take the 40-hour work week. It began as a way to protect workers from even longer hours and to get full employment. Yet it has hardened into a religious conviction even for many free thinkers. However, in 1933, Congress came within 5 votes of passing the Black-Connerly 30-hour work week bill. America was just a few lousy congressmen away from a permanent 3-day weekend. Thus, the 40-hour number is in great part an arbitrary choice. We're still in the Dark Ages. Remember also that not just atheists, agnostic, or spiritual liberals are free thinking, but also to a great extent Christian liberals. Studies have shown that though about 92% of Americans believe in God, 50% of those believe in a judgmental or angry God, and 50% in a distant or benevolent God. And the second 50% are mostly liberals. Once a God who threatens a literal hell is off the table, then belief in God represents few theoretical barriers to free thinking. If God is as nice as many liberals believe, there's no great risk to believe in her at all. In fact, most of the people in this room will probably get through the pearly gates. I might even. I'm not sure. If there are pearly gates. Besides, almost any view of the universe involves a substantial leap of faith in these days when even the basic fabric of physics is unraveling. It's possible that there are 11 dimensions and infinite parallel universes, supermassive black holes where no known physics goes, and Schrodinger's quantum cat, both dead and alive at the same moment. It's like when the zookeeper saw a chimpanzee reading the Bible in one hand and Darwin's Origins of Species in the other hand. Why are you reading both books? Asked the zookeeper. Well, said the chimp, I'm trying to figure out whether I'm my brother's keeper or my keeper's brother.
My plan for the book is to look at reality as directly as possible and so push free-thinking boundaries to their outermost limits. For instance, from an optimistic, free-thinking view of existence, every year, every person on Earth gets an entirely free trip around the sun. That's over 600 million miles, or the monetary equivalent of 25,000 trips around the world in only 365 days. But from a just as true but negative view of existence, life is a sexually transmitted disease with a 100% mortality rate. So we're stretching our free-thinking boundaries. You're stretching them. And
You just blew my mind.
yes, at Bill Branyon at yahoo.com.
All right, Bill. Well, thank you so much for being on
Thank you.
Just Us TV today. It's been fascinating.
It's been great. Thank
Thanks.
you. You asked great questions.
So
Oh.